Today we're going to tackle a topic that I get asked about a lot, something that we're going to revisit from about a year ago. We're going to talk about iconic 90s cards. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. Welcome to the most passionate content for card collectors on YouTube and possibly the whole entire internet. As usual, I am your host, Jake Roy, 90s B-Ball Cards here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, a little bit of Twitter, back on TikTok for Kobe Day, and still just sitting there with that screen name on Threads. So we are going to talk about some iconic 90s cards, but like I said, we are going to revisit this topic from about a year ago. So let's revisit from a year ago what we're talking about when we mention iconic cards. Let's talk about what iconic really means. So if we're looking at the Merriam-Webster dictionary in the definition of iconic, because if we're talking just amongst some friends, the term iconic gets thrown around and is kind of a convoluted term. So looking at the standard definition, the first one I don't really like. And so we look at the second definition, that's what we're going off of. Widely recognized and well established, i.e. an iconic brand. Think of iconic brands: Nike, Coca-Cola, Disney, the list goes on. Those brands, if you see the logo, if you hear the name, you know what we're talking about. You can picture it in your mind. You've seen the product. You've interacted with the products that they have. You know those brands through and through. The second piece of it, widely known and acknowledged, especially for distinctive excellence. Here, when we're looking at the insert sets, these are things that are set apart. They are distinctive. They are excellent. And if you think about stuff when you're thinking about a region for wines, perfect thinking, iconic, Champagne Valley, Champagne wines, you know what we're talking about. So this is stuff that I could show my wife. She's probably going to say, I've seen that before, or wow, look at that, that's incredible, wants to know more. If you show any sort of a sports card collector, they're probably going to have seen these cards, heard of these cards, know a little bit about them. It's not the first time you're running into them. Think about the 52 Mantle. If you're a basketball card collector, you know that card, even if you're not into baseball cards that much. If you're a baseball card collector, you know the 86 Fleer Jordan. It's iconic. It's something that doesn't need to be defined. You know the Honus Wagner. You know these cards. They're iconic. So that's what we're looking at. That's what we're running off for the definition. All right, so that's what we're talking about for iconic, the definition of iconic. We're going to be talking about the most iconic, the top 10 most iconic parallel cards of the 90s. So about a year ago, we did the most iconic insert cards. Today, we're going to be talking about those parallels, which is very popular for collectors of 90s cards. Very popular topic of discussion for today. So this is my list of the top 10 with a couple of honorable mentions, as you know me for. So let's get right into that. Alright, so we're going to start here with number 10, and of course it's one of those that I don't have in my collection. So number 10 is going to be the 97-98 Topps Finest Gold Embossed Die Cut Refractors. Beautiful cards, very intricate cards, a lot of variation in the designs. Serial number to 74 copies, but with that atomic refractor finish, as we call it, on the front and the back. Something that's gorgeous, and there's obviously, if you can't afford one of these, which, there's no shame in that, you can get one that's not a refractor version, or you could get one of those test refractor versions if you can find them. They're pretty hard to find that don't have the embossed and the die cut. And there's also the non-embossed die cut base refractors that don't have that atomic refractor pattern. So there's some stuff to kind of wet your whistle here. And there's also obviously the silver refractors that are embossed that are beautiful as well. So lots of other stuff, but these are gorgeous cards. These are hard to find, but also like the checklist is star-studded, some of the best players in the 90s. So, if you're looking for a Jordan, you're covered. If you're looking for some of the top rookies like Tracy McGrady, Tim Duncan, they're in there. Obviously my guy Penny, I'm looking for that one. So a beautiful one, highly sought after one. But greening is an issue on these. So if you find a copy and it's green, that's par for the course. But the less greening, the better, is how most people would say. So if you can find one that's not too green, you're a lucky one. So that's number 10. Number 9, Another one I don't have, so 97-98 Fleer Ultra Platinum Medallion. These are serial number to 100. This is the first year of Platinum Medallion, so this is why it gets that iconic push on this list. You know, one of those designs that I think they did a better job with some of them later on, but because it's the first, it's important. So that it gets a little bit higher on the list. And again, 97-98, you've got an incredible bunch of stars. Jordan obviously is the highlight here. There are also the Masterpiece Collection ones. We're not going to talk about one of ones too much, but just so that you know, those are out there and they look very similar. So if you see, you know, a Masterpiece, it is different, but you have to look on the back to see the difference there. So gorgeous cards, very valuable cards, very rare, just being 100 of them, you know, but also good rookies. And you've got, you know, second year Kobe with a beautiful picture, Jordan, like I talked about, Penny's in there, a whole bunch of guys. So that's number 9. Number 8, third in the row that I don't have in my collection. 97-98, sticking with the same year, we're going to go Fleer Metal Universe Championship PMGs. So this is the first PMG on the list, but not the last. These are gorgeous. They kind of have what a lot of people call now the scope pattern, but they are really eye-catching. You know, they don't have a ton of colors that like jump right out like a kaboom or something like that, but this refractor pattern or foil pattern, whatever you want to call that, it is eye-catching, to say the least. I have had some football versions of this in my collection, never a basketball. It's a penny that obviously is, you know, on that list of very expensive, very hard to find. These are still numbered to just 50 copies each, so again, very hard to find, and a lot of times when collectors get them, they keep them locked up for a long time, and you might never see them again, honestly. So when you see one, if it's something you want to get, you're going to have to pony up quite a bit. So again, something that the reason why I've gotten football ones is because I want to enjoy the beauty of the cards, but at a fraction of the price. So you can tend to look at other sports sometimes that don't go for as much as the basketball versions for these. Basketball is really where it's at. All right, so the first one that I have in my collection, 95-96 Fleer Ultra Gold Medallion. So this is going to be one of the easier to find in the whole list. So these were inserted at a rate of 1 per pack. I've got like 4 or 5 copies of the penny. 95-96, so they did not do the gold medallion for rookies. So you don't have a KG rookie, Jerry Stackhouse, Big Country, Bryant Reeves, Mighty Mouse, Damon Stoudemire. None of those guys are going to have gold medallions, but you do have Penny, you've got Shaq, you've got Jordan. Jordan's going to be the big one in this set, but these are very condition sensitive. You know, with the whole gold foil, looks like a gold bar there. Some people have said it looks like Willy Wonka's golden ticket. They really stand out in the pack, but they can definitely show any sort of corner issues. Like I had a Jordan at one point that had a very obvious corner issue. You know, not too dramatic, but definitely something that it sticks out like a sore thumb on these cards. So if you find a copy of this and it is graded highly, those will go quickly, and those will go for a bunch because people love these. They, you know, are just, everybody loves gold, you know, it's just covered in gold foil. So a good condition copy of this will definitely set you back a little bit more, but also, depending on who you collect, at 1 per pack, something that you can find pretty readily available. So it's not hard to find, it's just a matter of figuring out who you want and making sure the condition is something that you're happy with. So there is that one. The next one on the list is 93-94 Topps Finest Refractor. So I've got 2 here. We've got the Penny rookie, and then I also pulled out a Rodney Rogers just for good measure. So these are the first ever refractors, and they did not note it on the back or the front anywhere. You just had to know it by looking at it. They were inserted at a rate of 1 per 9 packs. So if you did not hit one in a pack and you didn't know what they looked like because we didn't have eBay back in 1993 to go and take a look at pictures, you know, you would have to probably ask a shop owner or a friend if they had any to compare yours to know. I know that's what happened with a lot of folks. So here you can see that rainbow finish. It definitely jumps out at you. It is something that, you know, people can't get enough of because we saw it every single year and continue to see it with, you know, Prism and other more modern releases from Panini. So it is the beginning of what might be the most iconic usage of any sort of technology. But yeah, so the Jordan is going to be a big one. Penny's rookie year, we got Chris Webber's rookie year, which they claim is a short print as well. but it doesn't really impact the value much. There's random players that were short printed, at least that's what Becca would tell us. There are also a subset series that have, instead of kind of the sandstone behind the player, they had a brick background. I like those better, actually. So some players, not all players have that, but like, Dennis Rodman, I recently showed off the brick background one. Shaq, I know, has a brick background. So there's a few nice players like that. Charles Barkley's another one that comes to mind. So some great classic players. And the Larry Bird is also an iconic card from this parallel set, as well as the Jordan, because it is one of those that's considered kind of the last playing year cards of Larry Bird. So being that it's the first usage of refractor, it's the only kind of technically playing years refractor of Larry Bird. So good luck finding one that's not green. Obviously the jersey's going to be green, but he gets green very easily, and almost like his hair also fades. It looks kind of monochrome. So we'll see if I can find a good picture of that to share with you. All right, next one here we've got is 96-97 EX2000 credentials. So this is the first time that they had the credentials for basketball, 96-97. You see in some other sports they had credentials and essential credentials. They did not do that for basketball. This is the only version of a parallel from EX2000, and I really love this. I love this for the Magic uniform with the white. I think it really plays well with that silver pattern there. I think this is just a gorgeous card for Magic players specifically, but I'm a little bias there. You flip it over on the back, you see it's serial number to 499. Not the lowest of serial numbers, but this was definitely something that was very exciting. Anything serial numbered in the 90s, especially 96, it was very uncommon. So this is one that I actually got at the Atlantic City National here of Penny. I've had others in my collection, and then when I got this one, I didn't need those others anymore, so I moved those on to other collectors. But an iconic set, you've got obviously Jordan, but you've got a Kobe rookie in there, Iverson rookie. Those obviously get a lot of people very excited. So really cool looking, beautiful looking cards. I am very partial to the Iverson credential. I think that's one that at some point in my collecting career I might need to get, but we're very happy to have this. Really love it, how it looks with the Magic, that sky background, the acetate, just a gorgeous set, and then you add that gorgeous holo foil on top of it. What's not to love there? All right, next one we've got is the 97-98 Star Ruby. So here we've got, the only one in my collection is Todd Day. So a random player. I picked this one up on COMC years and years ago. Got it slabbed. These are stuff that definitely is worth getting slabbed regardless of the condition, just for the authenticity. There are fakes out there. Usually a guy like Todd Day is not going to get faked, but some of the bigger name players, Jordan, Pennies, have been found that are faked. Tim Duncan is a big name that gets faked. So it's good to know that these are authentic. You flip it over on the back. This one's a little bit harder to tell because it's got that red foil on the red background, but these are numbered to 50 copies each. So very hard, very scarce to track down. In Series 2, you've also got the Team Skybox subset, so it's kind of more of a white background with that same holo foil finish, and you've got the red lettering there as well. So some people actually prefer the Team Skybox over the base. Sometimes it's player specific, sometimes it's just personal preferences. I'd have to double check comps to see, player for player, which one sells for more, if it's about the same. I can't remember off the top of my head, but again, we talked about some of those bigger name players. This is a Penny that I would love to get in my collection, but until then, the Todd Day's kind of a placeholder. I'm glad I got it when the getting was good. So that is going to come in at number 4 on the list. So we're getting up to some of those really, really sought after ones, and this is definitely way up there. Next on the list is going to be number 3. I don't have one in my collection, but it's the 97-98 Skybox EX 2001 Essential Credentials. So this is an iconic set that has 2 versions really, but each player, there's a total of 81 copies between the 2 versions. So you might be familiar with the mirror numbering, I believe it's called. So you've got players that are numbered from 1 to 81, or there's 82 copies, I believe, of each player. So 1 to 81, and then 81 to 1. So the one of ones, I believe, are Grant Hill for the now, and the future one of one, I believe, is Ron Mercer. So those ones, I think somebody posted on Blowout that they had the Grant Hill one of one, and the internet was a buzz for quite a while about that. So those are really cool looking. I love the pink and the purple and how that plays with certain team colors. My friend, I think you might have seen in a PSA reveal, got the Marcus Camby. Looks beautiful for the Raptors. So, Tracy McGrady is another one that looks beautiful. I like how those colors play for like the Bulls, for Jordan, or Penny also looks nice. And then the kind of yellow and green doesn't play as well for a lot of players, but Ron Mercer it works well for with the Celtics. And I think it works well also for Tim Duncan, which works out conveniently for both those guys there. So, those are some of the rookies that you can get. Obviously, Keith Van Horn is another big name. Tracy McGrady we already talked about. You've got other guys like Chauncey Billups and so on and so forth. But the big names there are going to be Jordan and Kobe for the veterans, and all of these are desirable. But obviously when you get to the lower numbered ones for each of the players, whichever one corresponds to being lower numbered, those ones are going to go for a ton, and they are going to be few and far between to find. They don't come up often, so you go years and years without finding some of those that are numbered to below 10. But it is exciting when they show up, and something that a lot of us get our popcorn out and just watch and see how those auctions go. So that was number 3. Number 2 on the list, so getting really high up there, we have got 96-97 Topps Chrome Refractor. So the second refractor on this list, and we've got the Penny and a Michael Finley. So these are 2 in my collection that I was really happy to have gotten when I did, before the prices kind of jumped up during the pandemic. And these were 1 in 12 packs, so not the most scarce, but we've talked about Topps Chrome. This is the first year of Topps Chrome, so that's why these get really high up on the list. We've talked about refractors, but these are higher up there because of the iconic nature of Topps Chrome as a set. Kobe Bryant's rookie year, obviously the Kobe, you've probably seen it. That is an iconic card all in of itself. The Jordan here's a great one. There's a lot of great players, but these are just a classic set. Greening is an issue, so again, like these are 2 copies that I try not to have in the sun much because greening is such an issue. I want to make sure that they stay the way they are. They neither one have much greening, if at all. Centering is also an issue on that set. You can see, especially on the Michael Finley, there's a much fatter border on the bottom than on the top. So finding these in gem mint condition is very difficult for both of those reasons, especially the centering. If you find a well-centered copy of this card, it's very difficult, but you also want to be careful and make sure that it's not something that has been tampered with. So you want to make sure it's the right sizing if you find something that looks a little bit more well-centered than the average card in the set. So just a couple of words of caution, but really gorgeous cards, beautiful once you have them in hand, and just something that brings back a lot of fun memories from a year gone by. All right, before we get to the number 1 on the list, we're going to go over a couple of honorable mentions. So the first honorable mention is going to be 98.99 Skybox Premium Star Rubies. So here's one in my collection. So this is one of the rookies. There are 2 different kind of foil patterns. So this is the Series 2 pattern, which are also well known for not only the rookies, but the 90 fine. So you see it's kind of a silver background here for this rookie. The 90 fines get the team color involved. So there's a Penny that's a blue, just a gorgeous card. I really like those. Very similar when you think about the Team Skybox subsets. Some people really like those 90 fines. Some people are not as big of a fan and they want the base set version. So these are serial numbered to just 45 copies for the veterans and 25 copies for the rookies. So you can see here on the back, so number 25. Again, having it graded regardless of the condition is important because of authenticity. So that is a thing to note. If you find a raw copy, it's something that you want to make sure you ask an expert before you pony up a big bunch of money. The Series 1 design is one that people love. It is more of a gold, I call it the gold leaf. Different people call it different things, but it's more of a gold looking pattern. So Jordan's in that first series. Penny is also in there. So we've got a lot of those really well-known big star veterans. So those go for a bunch. Just 45 copies, really hard to track down. But obviously, Vince Carter for the rookies here is one that gets a lot of headlines, numbered to 25 for that one. So that does not show up often at all. Then the other one that we want to have for honorable mention is the 96-97 Flair Showcase Legacy. So here I've got the rainbow of pennies, which I recently was able to put together. So we've got the row 2, which is kind of like the base. We've got the row 1, which is that next tier up. And then we've got the row 0. But these are all numbered to the same amount for these legacy collections. So you flip it over on the back, numbered to 150 for each. So while the row 0 definitely gets more attention and typically goes for more, before, it is not any more rare than the other two. So, you know, something that centering is typically an issue. You can see Beckett tends to knock it off for centering, whereas PSA doesn't. So that's something to note if you're looking at a graded copy. But, you know, this is the first version of a Legacy Collection card, something that, you know, Flair showcases a gorgeous looking set, and then you add that nice blue foil there for the Legacy Collection, and the serial numbering gets people really excited. So, you know, you've got obviously Kobe's rookie year here for 96. You've got Jordan, you've got Penny. I think the Rodmans look really nice in this set. You know, Iverson rookies, whole bunch of great stars, Kevin Garnett. You know, the list goes on and on. Gorgeous cards. First time that we saw Legacies, and people got excited when you started seeing serial numbered cards to that number of just 150. So, number one on the list. If you have a guess, drop it down in the comments, but you probably know what's coming. So we've got the 97-98 Fleer Metal Universe PMG. I don't have any in my collection except for a football version. So we can see the red PMG. There are also green PMG. So we're going to talk all about it. So the red PMGs for basketball are serial numbered to 100, but the last 90 copies are red. The first 10 copies are green. So while the serial numbering says it's to 100, it's 100 between the green and the red combined. So those first 10 copies are very hard to track down for any player. You know, it doesn't matter what the player is, it's going for at least, you know, 4 figures, and it just goes up from there. The Jordan PMG green was really one that kind of marked the beginning of a lot of the fervor over sports cards when that card sold. You know, it was a number of years ago now, but it's still something that is a landmark event for many collectors. So these are cards that really jump out when you see it in a case, just all red, all that etched foil. Not to be confused though, so the 97 version, there is more modern Fleer metal retro version. So we've got the Jason Williams here. These are not nearly as sought after. They definitely do, you know, get eyeballs because they still have that same look, but they are not nearly the same as that original one from the 90s. You can see them side by side. You might not be able to pick it up on camera, but one just kind of jumps, the colors dance a little bit more on the 90s version than they do on this more modern remake of it. So that's something that is kind of like a grail card for just about every single player collector, team collector, that some people just, you know, it might not happen. You know, so again, you're talking thousands of dollars for the greens. The reds depends on the player, but it being 97, you know, the Jordan is going to attract headlines. The Penny has the same design essentially as Jordan, so these designs were used each for 2 players. So if you've got a player that you really like the design of and you can't find it, look to see who's got the mirror, and maybe it's something you can kind of have as a placeholder. Like I said, you know, if you really like that Jordan, the Penny is just like it. But in some cases, people actually like the look of the base designs better, which is an interesting thing. So these jump out, but you lose some of the detail that was really kind of cool with the artistry in these cards. So really desirable, really sought after, really rare, really, really valuable. And again, having them graded is important for the authenticity. These have been faked. They do not grade well, so a low grade is not really going to be a deterrent for value. High grades will definitely help. You know, obviously, if you're getting something that's like a 2 or a 3, that might take the value down a little bit, but that's going to have some pretty serious condition issues, whereas getting something like a 6 or a 7 or an 8 is considered fine. Actually, an 8 is considered good for this set. A 9 is kind of like unbelievable. So that is the number 1 card there. It is just a gorgeous one to look at when you see it in hand, but something that you don't come across often enough. Alright, so that was the list. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, where you think these stack up. Did I at least identify the top 10, or are there any that I missed, even with those honorable mentions that you think should have made the list? Or are there any of these rankings that you don't agree with? Maybe the number 1 you don't agree with. So I'd love to hear that, because I think this is definitely a subjective list. This is kind of my thoughts based on my preferences, as well as what I see from other people, and that definition definitely weighed heavily. But, you know, some of these cards are not my personal favorites, but what I think are the most iconic to the vast majority of collectors. So my thoughts are subject to change, though. You can change my mind. So, you know, but let's keep it respectful in the comments. So, all right. I'd love to hear your thoughts on there, though. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss any videos in the future. New videos dropping once, sometimes twice a week. It looks into my PC, occasional collector interviews, occasional show reviews, occasional grading reveals, and so much more. Thanks. We'll talk later.